Good evening. This is the Wednesday, October 1st meeting of the Finance Committee. We have a convoluted agenda tonight. We're trying to help out some directors and folks get in and out of here and get to other meetings. So at 7 o'clock, we'll call to order. We're actually going to take a couple of transfers first from the Council on Aging. Then we're going to move right into the town meeting warrant articles. We've got minutes. We've got to reorg. So we got a few things going on. We're going to try to keep this in some sort of order. First up would be two transfers from Council on Aging. Ms. Murray, you want to come on up to the podium there? I'm going to read the transfers as presented to us, and then if you have any comments to that, that'd be great. Okay, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
By the way. The first transfer is from the director's salary account. Actually, both of these transfers are going to the assistant director's salary account. I'll accept the motion to take these two as one.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. The first is from the director's salary account. We are basically moving the full remaining balance, $1,374, to the assistant director's salary account. We're also moving $1,753 from the vacation coverage account, also to the assistant director's salary account, and this is to cover a deficit caused by the overlapping transition period when the director was hired. So, Ed, or?
If I may.
Yeah.
Mignon's predecessor left. There was a period of time where the assistant director was covering at a full-time basis. During that absence, upon the hiring of Mignon, there was a period of transition, about 4 weeks, Mignon, where Cheryl, the assistant, remained on full-time, just that learning curve until Mignon was comfortable with the comings and goings of day-to-day operations. So as a result of that, we're just transferring some money around within the department to meet those obligations.
And this is last year's funds, if I'm reading this correctly or not?
No, these are FY 15.
15?
Yep.
Okay, I'm just looking at the present balance numbers, so with those,
Well, the present balance, it assumes that the payroll is encumbered for the entire year.
yeah, okay. Okay. All right, any questions?
Motion to approve? Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Our second transfer is from the reserve account. This is Council on Aging. This is for maintenance building. Amount requested, $1,280. Reason, unforeseen expense. There's a leak on the grounds from a water main, an unforeseen expense. Do we have any additional detail that's worth adding on this, and not a big transfer?
It's pretty straightforward. There was a leak that had been ongoing that they were watching, required some major repairs in July.
It happened the first day of this budget year.
Yeah.
So it was water on the grounds, and literally the service date was July 1st, from what I understand, before I began.
Okay. Okay, any questions, Jim?
Just a quick question. So the leak was on the service line into the building, not in the street?
It was on there's a period of grasp from the end of the building to the road, and it happened before there. Kind of, if you're familiar with the gazebo on the property, it was to the side of the gazebo.
Okay. Thank you.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Thanks for your time and coming up. Alrighty. Also, is there anyone recording tonight except for those authorized? Thank you. Check that box. Okay, to the town meeting warrant articles. I'm actually going to skip ahead a little bit to take care of our folks from the school department, school committee. We have a posse here, including superintendent, I think our new budget guy, who I haven't met yet, I'm looking forward to that, and my old friend Joe Fahey. So, Dr. Brunel, I know there's a few different warrant articles with totally different purposes on that, so yeah, if you three want to come on up, that'd be great. What I think I'll do is Articles 3 and 4 are quite different purposes from 5 through 9. So if I can drive the bus briefly, and then I'll let you back me up where needed. Article 3, to see if town meeting will vote to appropriate $623 from the general fund revenues for the school department operating budget fiscal year 15 to fund transportation costs for homeless and/or unanticipated transportation for other students to their educational programs. I think we were given a heads up that this may be coming, that an additional request will be coming.
Correct.
I'll actually, it's $623. I'll open it up to questions and just let you respond as necessary.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I believe our choices are recommend approval, recommend not approval, defer to petitioner, or take no position at this time. Let's just make that clear. So Article 3 is all set. Article 4, see if town meeting will vote to appropriate a sum of $20,432.61 from available funds school restitution account 263002 for the addition of new playground equipment and renovation of the current playground equipment at Packagug School to ready it for the K through second grade students who will be educated there in 2015 and 2016 school year due to the reconfiguration of the elementary schools once the new middle school is opened. Any questions or comments on this? Kim?
What is this account, available funds, school restitution? Is it a general fund revenue, or is it a revolving account, or?
It was actually net proceeds of litigation that had occurred against a former employee prior to my arrival as superintendent, and these are the proceeds from that.
The reimbursement came in after the close of the fiscal year. Normally, it would come into the refund that the account was used to replenish those funds. As a result of that, we handled it as a special revenue account to be voted out at a later time for school purposes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Question, Ian?
Yeah, what's the total amount of the project? Is it this figure?
We're thinking probably approximately $25,000, but by
Okay.
using this, we'll be able to use operating funds to supplement or revolving funds.
Okay.
Any other questions? Chip?
That 20,400 figure, is that the balance of
That's
that
the full
account?
amount in that account,
Okay.
yes,
So we're clearing that out.
correct.
Any other questions? Do I have a recommendation?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so voted. Great, thank you. Dr. Brunel, for Articles 5 through 9, I'm calling them somewhat like purpose. So if you can give us an overview of that, I'll probably read every third word when I get to them, but I think if we can use one description on this, it'll just move this along quicker.
That would be great.
Thank you.
So this past January, if you remember, we had a joint meeting with the Finance School Committee and Board of Selectmen, and we shared with you, we were in the very early stages of applying to the MSBA Accelerated Repair Program. So what you see here is actually requests for transfers to be able to fund our portion of that. Now, we have actually had a conference call with them just yesterday and got some more guidance around this. So it is anticipated that the funding here would allow for our portion to be paid, which would ultimately save the town of Auburn between where approximating $600,000 to $1 million. MSBA would, their portion would be approximately 50%. We don't yet have exact figures on what these will cost. That's part of the process. We're actually just in the process of hiring and signing a contract with the owner's project manager, which MSBA has assigned. So at an upcoming meeting, we would need to seek authorization for the full value of these repairs. And what we're looking to do is replace the roof at Auburn Middle School, replace the roof at Bryn Mawr School, and a partial boiler replacement at Auburn Middle School.
Any questions before I start reading through this? And we will vote on them individually, but the purpose is collective. Kim?
These are all old capital budgets that were not expended.
Either,
Old-
I'm
Are
sorry.
they all old CIP?
They vary from the years, but they are either ones that we have done a portion of the work and it's a balance, or it is that we have determined based on, for example, through the Town of Auburn's Green Community Grant, we've actually been able to realize some savings. So in some of these accounts, we've actually been able to save those funds. So And in some cases, like for central office window replacements, we're simply going to defer that in an effort to save the money for the town of the close to $1 million. But they have all been previously approved CIP amounts.
Yep.
And have all these monies been already borrowed? Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Ann, go ahead.
What is the total, what do you anticipate the total cost to be for everything?
Okay? So Joe, can I get an?
We're estimating the boiler job at the Auburn Middle School to come in at $150,000.
Yep.
Our portion would be obviously half. The roof replacement at the Auburn Middle School is where we budgeted, we're estimating close to $800 to $1 million, so half of that. And we're estimating $500 for the roof at Bryn Mawr School.
Okay, so continuing, so we'll total that up. We're hoping MSBA pays about 50%, is that it?
Correct.
And then this will be our portion of the 50?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Our part of it, okay, thank you.
That 50%, is that on all three of these major items?
Of eligible costs.
Eligible costs.
So we'll need to fund, and we have secured through the school committee through revolving accounts for the OPM and for the architect. We'll have to pay those fees separate from this, but that is our understanding that they will pay for 50% of all eligible costs.
Okay. And that total is approaching, I know a number of about 1.8 million was brought up last January. This is just a little bit short of that, and I know there were a lot of estimates going on, so we're still talking in that ballpark anyways.
That's our best estimate at this
Okay.
point, yes.
Good. Any other questions, Jim, Ed, Chris? Okay, I'm just going to read through these. Like I said, we will have to vote on them individually, and I'm not going to read these verbatim. I don't think that's necessary for what we're trying to do. Article 5, we're amending, or we're going to take a vote to amend Article 4 of the May 28 annual town meeting. That would be moving $73,833.57 from the school rehab account for roof replacement and boiler at the middle school. That would be to, roof replacement, boiler at the middle school, and roof replacement at Bryn Mawr. Do I have a motion on that?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Kim?
I'm okay
All right,
with it.
so
but
so
I just-
voted. Question? Yeah, sure, absolutely.
The total of these 5 articles is, do I have like 930,000? Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I thought you said 600,000.
No, that we could save, because what we've done is set aside, so we had first estimated approximately 1.8 million for the total cost. We're hoping that some come in lower, but we need to be sure that we have money to fund our portion. So we've set aside some additional funds. We hope we won't need to use them.
Okay, any other questions? And please interrupt me at any time on this. Article 6, we're voting to amend the May 2009 annual town meeting CIP to move 30,000 and 100,000 from the middle school, and, let's say, 100,000 for Packagug, and for the same purpose, roof replacement at the middle school, Bryn Mawr, and boiler. Have a motion?
Motion to recommend?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, so voted. Article 7, this would be from the CIP. Article 3 from the 2010 annual town meeting, and this is to move 56,000 from Bryn Mawr, 95,000 from the central office, $95,300 from Packagug School, and add those totals, $246,300 for the same purpose, replacement of roof and boiler at Auburn Middle School and roof replacement at Bryn Mawr.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Article 8, this would be from the CIP. Article 3 from the 2011 annual town meeting, and that's repurposing $57,613 from the central office, and that would also go to replacement of roof and boiler at Auburn Middle School and roof replacement at Bryn Mawr.
Motion to
Second.
All in favor? Aye, opposed, so voted. Article 9, this would be to amend CIP Article 3 of the 2012 annual town meeting. We're moving funds totaling $175 from Bryn Mawr and $150 for Packagug and $100,000 for Auburn High School and $55,000 for the central office and adding $480,000 for the replacement of roof and boiler at Auburn Middle School and roof replacement at Bryn Mawr.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so voted. Thank you. Okay. Jim?
Just one statement about really all of these articles. I've always had issues with money that's been borrowed under CIP that kind of sits out here. Now, in this circumstance, it's a good thing we did, or we'd have to be coming up with that money right now. It just, I know that the school was a little bit in flux because we didn't know if we were going to build a new middle school and, you know, consolidation of the other schools, but I see this in many departments, and, you know, the CIP is meant for projects that should be, that are needed. And I just hate seeing money that's 6 years old, in one instance, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 years, that was borrowed, and we did pay interest on, and it just sat there. Like I said, and unfortunately, in this circumstance, it's good that money was there, or we'd have an issue, but I've always had an issue with CIP money just kind of sitting out there.
Through the chair, I understand completely. We had a similar discussion in May when I was here, and I will tell you, as we shared with Mr. Kazanovich and Ms. Jacobson, and at a recent meeting with the three of us, I think that you will see in the next 12 to 18 months a markedly different CIP from the school department. Funds had intentionally been set aside, waiting for decisions to be made, but I will tell you, we've got an awful lot of pins we are juggling right now in the air, but lots of good things. But I fully appreciate the concerns raised.
No, I'm
I agree with
hoping
them.
that, you know, we're making a big plan with the schools, the new school and consolidation. Hopefully that'll stabilize things a little. I hate to say stabilize, but at least be able to project things that are needed, and we're
Sure.
going to be taking care of many of these things with this money.
Oh, understood. Thank you.
Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ed, does our current financial policies and practice address any of Jim's concerns that we have in place today?
Can you go to the podium, please?
Chris, what I can tell you is that we are, there is no current financial policy relative to the CIP that the concerns that Jimmy has raised. Although, as part of the consideration of the bylaw review, we are changing the limits of the CIP, an attempt to borrow items that now have a minimum threshold of 10,000, so we can absorb some of those smaller ones through the operating budget and not rely on bond proceeds to do that. But I can tell you that we've also are feeding our CIP plan by 1/10 of 2.5% every year, too. As part of our capital review on an annual basis, we are reviewing all capital, old as well as new, and I think, as you have seen, we have brought to town meeting some amendments that are cleaning up some of the old. We are emphasizing through our annual review that any capital monies that we are borrowing, that need be addressed within the first 12 to 18 months, so we can spend down there, and we're not sitting on bond proceeds and paying debt and interest on money that we're not spending.
So moving forward, we couldn't do what we're doing today, essentially.
Moving forward, we make this part of an annual review. It is not by way of a formal policy, but it is understood. We have communicated that to all those departments, including schools, as well as town meeting, because we are committed to reviewing that on an annual basis.
Thank you.
And I guess for those of us that oppose kind of in principle this way, and it worked out very well in this case, or it is working out very well. As part of the Finance Committee, we still should be asking those questions. Was last year's CIP money spent or not spent? And really keeping town administration's feet to the fire relative to whatever department had requested and had those monies approved. So, a part of that is our job, is kind of overseeing this too.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, our last borrowing, we didn't borrow the full amount of the authorization. I think school held back on a number of their capital items. It's okay, and that's what we prefer. It would be unauthorized and unissued. They could always go back and borrow it at a later date, so it's not sitting there. So a lot of thought was put into this last borrowing as a result of that review. So I can tell you, everyone is looking at their capital very closely, only borrowing what they need immediately. Other needs that can wait because they know they can't get to it at this time. It's authorized, unissued, and they're able to get at that at a later date. If not needed, we can always rescind it as well.
I mean, we could ask for a report or status, too.
Yeah, it's still incumbent on us to do that, and we've infrequently done that. I think you guys have been very active in terms of cleaning up loose balances and those kind of things, and I know that's not the issue we're talking about, but it's definitely bringing us really up to present anyways. Ian, question?
Just another question for Ed, not to extenuate, push it too much, but what is our lender's policy? Or do they have any opinion on perhaps borrowing the money and then not using it within a certain period of time?
Absolutely. There are specific guidelines. When you borrow money, you are required to spend down on that money within 18 to 24 months. If not, then IRS could come in and they can do what they call an arbitrage calculation. The IRS does not want you to earn interest on money that's borrowed money. Those calculations, quite honestly, are being performed more frequently than not now. It's something that the industry is pursuing. So we are cognizant of that, and we got to be very careful of that, because we could be in a situation where we have to not only pay back the interest, but we're penalized for not spending that money as well.
Thank you.
So I guess what we should do here, Joe, spend the money or give it back. Okay. All right. All right. Article 10, I'm not going to read this. In fact, I'm going to defer to Dr. Brunel just to explain. I know this has to do with, I'll say, small land takings relative to the entrance and egress to West Street itself, all the way down to the school property. And I did miss the Monday night meeting. I apologize for that. But if you can explain to our committee what Article 10, its intent is.
Sure. So I will do a portion and then may turn it over to Mr. Coyle. But as you stated, this really is for the expansion of West Street from the entrance and exit of the new middle school down to the Route 12 intersection. It will include a dedicated left turn lane into the school property. A sidewalk is being added. And then at the actual intersection, there will be 2 lanes, correct, Mr. Coyle, that will be able to turn left onto Route 12. So really the intention, and this satisfies the planning board's site plan approval, and also we believe makes it a safer environment for the students and staff who will be now occupying this area that we know to be a busy stretch of road.
Okay. And obviously, there's no dollar amount here. And I'm not too sure how that was talked to or addressed Monday evening.
The reason for that, appraisals are currently underway. We anticipate having all of those values prior to town meeting. In fact, may even be able to be brought to Finance and Board of Selectmen at your meeting just prior to town meeting. But it's just really a time issue at this point.
Okay. Kim, question?
Is this money coming from the whole amount that was appropriated for the whole project? So we're not appropriating an additional sum, it's part of the however many millions of dollars?
Correct. So it's using a portion of the $44.5 million authorization that's already been made for this purpose, for temporary and permanent land takings or easements.
So this was not anticipated when the project was put out to bid. What does this do to your project budget by having to take a portion of the money that you allocated for the 44.
Sure. So it has been brought to the SBC. They've been made aware. We've actually been working on this for several months, and based on contingencies that have been built into the budget, we still believe that we have ample funds to take care of this and the construction.
Now, were we not aware because we didn't have a dollar amount, or we weren't sure whether we needed to take land from non-municipal, I don't know, what do we get, the water department has some land that's built?
Yeah.
Through the chair, I think a project of this magnitude, until you go before the planning board and you have traffic engineering studies completed, the evaluation of what your improvements are going to be to mitigate any traffic impacts are unknown. So the school department went through that process, and the traffic reports came back that we needed additional lane widths, additional lanes, a sidewalk, which required actually 3 land takings, one from National Grid, one from Mass DOT, and one from Perros Auto. The other takings or easements were all temporary in nature, more for driveway sloping work. So the extent of what the takings were going to be would not have been known at the time the school was under design and going out to bid.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Dr. Brunel. Where we don't have a dollar amount here, we can hold this if we want, if we think we're gonna get a number, just to take some comfort to that before a town meeting. I wouldn't think you'd have a problem with that either on that, just so we know. But I'll open that up to the committee on how we want to vote on this.
I prefer to hold it.
Me too.
Okay, so we, I guess, yeah, we'll hold it, so we won't vote on this at all then. That's all the articles for you folks, right?
It is.
I know you're running off to a meeting, so appreciate your time on this. And you'll work through Eddie to get us numbers as soon as you have them on
Yes,
these,
absolutely.
if you have them.
Yes, absolutely. And through the chair, if I can just do a couple of quick announcements. I want to introduce you to Howie Barber, Howard. Howie, he likes to be called, as our new business manager, started July 1st, so he's been a welcome addition. I want to thank Joe Fahey, whose expertise in keeping all of this going in the building really deserves to be credited. Bill Coyle's been great in terms of the collaboration that we've had. And I also want to just put a shout out to the Julie Bancroft School that today was recognized as a National Blue Ribbon School for gap closing achievement. So one of only, I think it was 337 schools across the nation, so quite an honor. So
Wow.
congratulations to all of them.
Excellent. Nice to hear that.
Welcome to Auburn.
Yes, and welcome.
Thank you very much.
We'll have a lot of fun with you. And good to see you. I know you have another meeting to go to.
Okay,
Thanks for your
thanks very
time. Joe,
much.
good to see
Thank
you.
you, guys.
Okay. All right. What I'd like to do this time is go back to Article 2. Ed, well, you can give us a bit of an overview on what we're shifting around here. My math says all of these dollar changes are going to add up to a reduction in the operating budget of $500?
Yes.
Do I have that
and,
correct?
We actually, well, if I may, I just want to paint a picture
Sure.
coming out of the annual town meeting. At the conclusion of the annual town meeting, I think we left about $25,000 available unobligated, and decided not to make any recommendations because the state final numbers were not out yet. We went with the best numbers we had, and the end result after the state cherry sheet was released resulted in a reduction of revenue expenses. When it all netted out, we were down about $38,000. So that shifted our available balance from 25 to a negative 14, roughly. So some of the requests originally came in as separate articles requesting money being appropriated from general fund revenues, or basically taxation. At that point, we decided to review Article 2. We made some reductions based upon some knowns that were unknown at the annual town meeting. For instance, our insurance and bonds, we knew what our premium was, and we monitored some other line items such as unemployment comp and veterans benefits. Those two line items have minor reductions of $5,000 to free up some money in order to meet some of the need that's been identified in this article as well. For the first quarter, we're running at an annual clip for both unemployment comp and relief and medical of about $35,000 to $40,000. So 5 is just a small piece. That can change very quickly overnight. And so we didn't want, even though we're running at an annualization of 35 to 40, we didn't want to take any more than 5 because, like I said, things can change very quickly. So we were able to neutralize some of that need by reductions and actually reduced Article 2 by a total of about $500. There is an additional article being asked by the fire chief for some repairs at West Street with regards to the floor that we believe we can make up through some minor adjustments in local receipts because we went with the projected versus actual. I'm going to tell you that we have still remained very conservative in the local receipt side, and we've done that intentionally to build up our free cash. I think we communicated to the Finance Committee that at a recent bond rating review, we got a positive outlook. What does that mean? It means we're on the cusp of an upgrade on the next go-around with Moody's. We take that very seriously. That's going to translate to long-term savings in debt and interest for the residents of this community and take some relief off of the debt and interest we pay through the general fund operating budget. That's important to us. We don't want to jeopardize anything. Moody's wants to see a continued trend similar to what we recognized in 14. I think once we get there, then we can take some pressure off and maybe create a little more elasticity. Until such time, we're going to stay the course.
Okay. Yeah, actually, Ed and I had spoken offline on this. There's a request in here for $200,000 going to the stabilization fund, and I asked him, I said, hey, when is enough in terms of taking care of the rating agencies in terms of where we would like to be over a certain period of time, and then those funds, instead of being locked up for a real rainy day, either get used by the town or get turned back to the town in terms of relief on the tax rate. So I'm going to throw a number out there that we're not trying to get to today, tomorrow, or even next year, and I believe it was somewhere around $2.5 million in the stabilization, and with this, we'll be near $2 million.
Well, if you recall, in the FY15 budget, we had a one-time appropriation out of stabilization for $450,000 towards the purchase of a new fire truck. We had, and we used $325 for the purchase or acquisition of property for the Masonic Home for the Auburn Middle School. We replenished $300 of that $325, so we're basically down to about 1.7, 1.8. It's important for us to send a signal to Moody's as well as Standard & Poor's that we're committed to rebuilding that, and we're not making it a habit to go to stabilization and fund every year a sum of money without consideration of replenishing it. So we are appropriating that out of overlay surplus. That's a one-time revenue source. Part of our financial policy is to wean the general fund operating budget out of utilizing overlay surplus and free cash to fund our general fund operating budget. FY15 is last year. So we knew that we were going to build up some reserves as a result of not using that, but that's part of the financial plan. And part of that is to utilize in the future overlay surplus to either feed stabilization or to fund one-time purchases such as capital. And number two, when we hit our benchmarks for free cash, that's going to allow us to use free cash for like purposes as well. So it is all part of a financial plan that's outlined in the financial policies and plans that you have adopted as well.
Okay. Kim?
You said we had a negative $14,000 roughly available fund balance. So we're cutting $500,000, so we're still short $500, not $500,000, $500. So we're short $13,500.
Right.
Where's that money coming?
Local receipts. Local receipts, we had a surplus of about $900,000, 14. We were conservative going into 15. We have some flexibility.
So you'll up your estimates?
Yes.
By 13.5?
Yes.
And can I ask questions about Article 2? Or
Yeah, and I'll run through reading it at a point in time when all our questions are all set, that's fine.
Can
So
we
go ahead.
talk about that now? Or
Go ahead, absolutely.
I see we're increasing a few line items in here. The first one's minibus gas. I'm assuming it was just under budgeted, although the gas prices are lower.
The last couple of years, we've actually brought transfers before the Finance Committee to increase that line item. The service, the client service being provided by the senior center has increased. We asked the WRTA if they would be willing to contribute some additional funds because we are transporting, in some cases, some individuals that are out of our district, but it's part of a contractual obligation. So they need to share in some of that cost as well. So we're going after that. But if you look at, there are actually 3 funding sources on an annual basis that provide for minibus gas. 1 through the senior center, 2 through the Elder Affairs grant, and 3 from a mini grant provided to us from St. Vincent's. Over the last 2 years, maybe 3, we've needed additional funds to meet that gas need. So we're just trying to realign that based upon some history. We believe $4,000 will be adequate enough to get us through the year. Even though there's been a drop in gas, there may be a slight savings, but once again, we don't know where those prices are going to go.
What about the landfill water gas monitoring? Is that a new issue?
No, there have been outside.
It's going from 0 to 13,000?
Well, it's 0 because we've treated that as an outside article. We now want to build that into the general fund operating budget on an annual basis because it is a cost that we have to deal with on an annual basis.
Forever.
We had talked about it, and it was like, well, why aren't we just sticking it in the operating budget?
So did we
where it
not,
belongs?
we didn't have it in the, as an outside article in the annual?
Last year, we had it as an outside article of 20 or 25,000.
Right, we still have, there's a balance that we get us till July 1. This 13,000 gets us to July 1
Right.
with the testing. And then next year, we built it at 20,000 per year.
Okay, all right. And now, what's the 7,500 for the youth commission?
If you recall, Auburn Youth and Family Services, and I think Norm LaFlash is here tonight, they came in and made a presentation to both Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, a need that they identified well over 15, but they, and correct me if I'm wrong, Norm, but they're seeking an additional 15. At the time, we said we can't commit to any increase level funding, given the financial situation we were facing when we built the budget. We had indicated to both boards and committees that we would try to prioritize this as a need. I think given the financial situation, we weren't able to meet the 15, but took a step forward to at least try to get 50% to them. I think Norm can tell you what that $7,500 would be utilized for. Specifically, I don't know.
So basically, what we're doing is we're, in the operating budget now, is we're recommitting an additional $7,500, hopefully annually, to the Auburn Youth Commission line. At this point in time, not quite reaching the request from, I'll call it the department, but making an effort to that. Go ahead, Kim.
But they're
Continue.
not a department, they're a outside agency that we subsidize.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think they do great work for the town, but we have a lot of departments that we didn't fund requests. I don't have my stuff here from budget season. What else did we have on that priority list that we didn't fund for our town departments in May?
yeah,
Because we
and-
did have a priority list.
Yes, we did have a priority list. I would have to refer back to it. My recollection is there's personnel need in the areas of public safety, specifically police, fire, Department of Inspectional Services are looking for additional help. The priority, we made our snow and ice a priority. We wanted to increase that. I can tell you that salt is up 40%? 30%. I know we made and I appreciate the commitment and the support. We increased that by $50,000 last year.
Right.
We wanted to increase that by an additional sum of money, knowing that we try to meet our 5-year average cost. And we're still committed to do that. Actually, the 30% came in the other day after the warrant was closed, so that was an unknown. That just became known, last week?
Yeah, last week.
Last week.
It might be slightly better, Ed, because we have the numbers a little lower.
Yeah.
25 to 30.
So we know, even running at status quo, that cost is gonna go up.
Were there other priorities that you remember from that? I just don't remember from the list.
Yeah, I didn't bring my budget
Yeah.
book with me because I had it in that.
But
But I
funds
do
were limited.
remember-
Remember, we went from 25 to -14, so in most cases, those needs far exceed what we have available, so.
Right, but the point I'm making is that while the Youth Commission and Auburn Youth and Family Services does very good work for the town, children and families, it's not a town department. The town does not have control over the expenditure of their money, and the town departments have needs too, and I think we're not sending a good message to our departments who have all come here saying, we need this, 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 and this. And we're making no attempt here to fund any of the positions for police, fire. One of the positions, seems to me, there was like a $15,000 something for some part-time clerical staff in your inspectional services. If I remember correctly, it seemed it was like peanuts kind of amounts of money for our departments. And I can't support increasing that line personally, if we're not going to, at this point, that's my. So if we're going to vote this article, I would like to have the opportunity to oppose this section and maybe take that one piece separately, if that's okay.
No, I don't think we can do that. So if you oppose Article 2 because of any reason, then you oppose Article 2. And you've certainly stated, I think eloquently, your feelings as to why. So we certainly don't have to vote unanimously on any of these. And I think your point is well taken. I'm gonna.
It's really, it has absolutely nothing to do with not being supportive of Auburn family. It's more to do with what we do for all our town departments. And by putting this in here, are we committing funding for every year that is going to take away from police or fire or inspectional services or council on aging or anywhere else in fiscal 16? And it becomes our starting point, and we can't go any lower than that in the future.
Well, really, just as a point on that, we've actually, in the past, in tough times, reduced this budget. So therefore, from a certain perspective in a vacuum, I would prefer if we had to reduce an operating budget to do it on a contract basis than on a personnel basis. Personally, I don't want to remove any staff from any department anywhere within the town or schools. And at that point, the hard decision is, do you look at some of these contracts that we have first in terms of reducing it? And that's just a theoretical on that. So we'd certainly take an, Ed,
If I may, and this was a concern that I think we identified before the board the other night. We don't want to have to give something and then take it away. We need to know that we're able to support this going forward. And that's why when we can't commit anything more than 7,500 or what's available right now. I can tell you going forward that things are going to get tight. Things are going to be lean because we now have to absorb the debt and interest that we incur as a result of Bay Path. That was not done through a debt exclusion. That is going to hit the town beginning next year. That's going to put a pinch on what's available to be used throughout general government. We have contractual obligations. We still have to live within the limits as given by the Board of Selectmen under Prop 2.5. And that makes it extremely difficult. So I just want to let the Finance Committee know that looking forward, things aren't going to be easy. We're going to have to make some difficult decisions, but, and that's if we live within the confines of 125.25 for capital, and a certain portion to meet our obligation for Bay Path as well.
right. Chris and then Ann. Chris?
I want to completely agree with Kim. I think you're making her argument. I mean, if leaner times are, we've been saying, most of us have been saying this board for a decade. A lot of us, I'd say, so whatever. And every year, I hear how tight things are, we can't do this much, and you know what, I mean, I think you sold me tonight. I mean, I don't know how we can increase a line item knowing that potential leaner times are coming. And I can't answer that question tonight, but I'd like to know what the town, because it's submitted by the town manager, what her priorities are. Because that's for new monies. I mean, is it to fill a position in the fire department? Is it to fill a position? I don't know what it is. I just like to know, because we have our priorities. I guess I wasn't prepared. None of us were really prepared to answer this question tonight, but, I think just listening to you making the case, a great case not to increase and be a little conservative.
Well, let me also tell you that for FY15, our estimated new growth is coming in about $130,000 higher. That's $130,000 under Prop 2.5 without biting a piece of 2.5 that we're allowed to build into the budget. Not knowing the position of the Board of Selectmen, that may now become available in the FY16 budget. Or they may continue to use that to mitigate that shift as an effort to compress the tax rate. Without a plan in place, these sands are always shifting, and as a result of that, priorities change from year to year. So we have to reassess the town's position, its need, based upon the availability of funding, on an annual basis. So what priorities that may be in place today may totally change the following year.
So why not add $7,500 to the free cash and roll it over to next year and have a little more flexibility next year?
Well, I can tell you our free cash, although not certified, is going to be in excess of $7 million. We've never been in such a better position in the history of Auburn. That's a good thing. That doesn't mean let's rob the bank and spend it, because we have a game plan in place. We are moving in the right direction. We have been conservative, and it has paid off. We've built up our reserves. We built up our free cash. And we've built up our stabilization. It's put us in a good position. But at the same time, we've been living within the limits of the guidance given by the Board of Selectmen and under the financial policies. As a result of that, it's only natural that things are going to be lean and things tighten up. Because every year, we're only spending a portion of what we're allowed to spend. Whether that continues or not, I don't know. If that doesn't continue, that opens things up a little bit, so.
And if I can add to that, Ed, really what happened with the Bay Path vote and the way we're funding that was very much a surprise to us, and it certainly happened after we put the financial plan in place. And in a way, we're going to have to address that. The Board of Selectmen will have to address that. Otherwise, there will be a significant cut in the operating budget only because those funds, instead of being an override type extra dollars, and I know it's all same dollars out of our pockets, that's going to pay for Bay Path on it. Now, what we did, I'll say, with the capital, what do we, 0.25%? We dedicated to that, but that was over and above our 1.25, et cetera, et cetera. I'm hoping the Board of Selectmen, even though I don't want my taxes going up, will consider whatever that percentage that is the Bay Path commitment that we've made and look at that also. Otherwise, we raise that $400,000 to a higher number in terms of how the Board of Selectmen is going to look at our funding. So unfortunately, our best-laid formula got kind of blown up with just the funding mechanism for Bay Path.
Doesn't mean we should. Almost said that.
Okay, Ian?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify a point on something that Kim had said about speaking to the increase in what we see in Article 2 here. We are taking away, by increasing that line item in the Youth and Family Services, you had mentioned it was taking away from our town departments. I just want to be clear for our viewers at home, and we're not reducing any departments for that. Perhaps we're not adding any money on, but no departments are getting reduced for that. So I just want that to be clear, so everyone knows.
And that's a good point. I know Chris had mentioned something about wanting to hear from the town manager what her priorities are. I'm assuming that's next priorities that didn't get addressed in this. We had, what, 7 or 8 or 9 items that were part of that. So, eventually we're going to have to vote on Article 2. I'd like to make a suggestion that maybe we wait and hear from the town manager directly on that unless you understand her priorities on this also, so we can get comfortable with that. Eventually, we're going to have to vote positively on some version of Article 2, if not this version. If we're not comfortable voting on it right now in its present state, I don't believe eventually we can vote no. Eventually, we have to vote yes on this. This is the funding for the town. And I certainly understand the questions and concerns on that. So I'll throw that out there, and how do we want to address that? Jim, and then back to Kim.
Just an understanding, this has already been approved by Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen decided to hold Article 2 until the night of town meeting.
Just Article 2?
Is that?
Article 2, Article 10.
Okay.
10 makes sense. We're holding that.
I'm sorry, they approved Article 10.
They did.
I guess my
The
question
other one
is,
is the street acceptance, Article 23.
at this point, you can't go in and take out line items, or can you?
Yes, you can. You can amend, yes, you can amend.
You can amend down.
Down.
Okay.
Good, Jim?
Yeah.
Kim?
If I had my choice, I'd hold till town meeting night.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I'd be prepared to offer a motion that reduces Article 2 by $7,500.
Okay. And once again, that was just a suggestion. I
Right.
I wasn't actually aware that the Board of Selectmen decided to hold on that also. That's interesting to me. New news. Chris?
Could we ask the town, is she available to attend our maybe a quick meeting with us before town meeting? To talk about priorities and
Well,
what the priorities
I
are?
personally think this board's more important than the Board of Selectmen, but not everyone agrees with that.
You know, we could make it a, whatever. We could-
Yeah, well, we have some
At some point,
specific
she can
questions
stop
for
in.
her, so, yeah. I'm sure we can make that request. There's no motion at this point in time. Are there any other questions or comments, and then we'll take that recommendation, Chris? Ian, you all set? Ed? Oh, Chris, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And to hold until the night, our next meeting.
Agreement on that? Okay. So we'll hold that also. Are we voting on a hold?
Do we need to
Yeah.
vote
I
on?
don't,
We did
I mean,
have-
I'm comfortable with a hold too. And if, you want to vote on Article 2, you're still going to have an opportunity to vote on Article 2.
No, let me just go on, let me, if I may.
Absolutely.
I don't think we need to hold, I don't see why we can't just approve this tonight. I mean, the net, we're looking at a net decrease of $500, and the amounts that we're talking, the needs are clear here, so
Okay,
it's my opinion.
and I agree with you on that. Okay, let's get some clarification on that, I think that's fair. Obviously, the town manager has set this as a priority over other things, so let's just be very clear on that. That's why it's in here as an increase. So, any more comments on Article 2? We'll move along. Okay, so we have this on hold. Good. Good discussion. I believe next we go to Article 11. Actually, you know what, before we go to Article 11, Chief, Norm, actually, why don't we address your article right now, seeing how it's the topic of conversation? And thanks for coming in, and thanks for your time on that. What article number is it?
All right, thank you. I wasn't sure exactly when, and I know you were having all the discussion. I wanted to let all that discussion air out before we went through, and whenever you wanted to go. And I know there are a lot of questions as far as our section of the Article 2. We continually come up here every year asking for an increase of funding, and we have, over at least the last 6 years, stayed at level funded, which, you know, we were willing to do because there are always ways to do other ways of fundraising and trying to supplement what we have contracted with services. Now, the biggest gap in our budget as to what we propose with Auburn Youth and Family Services usually comes, it isn't usually, it almost always comes from counseling with the high school and with the middle school, and there's also some tutoring. Those are the biggest gaps. Almost anything, any other services that are provided are covered under the amount of money that we do. The Auburn Youth and Family Services will never turn anybody away. There's always a good collaboration between the schools and Auburn Youth. And whenever the schools ask them if there's a family or a student that needs counseling, for whatever the reason is, they will always step up and they will never turn anybody away. Over the last 5 years, the gap in what we provide in the budget and what the cost of those actual services are has expanded to where the gap last year was between $75,000 and $80,000 more than what we contracted out to them. So we took a stand at the Auburn Youth Commission this year to ask for the $15,000 just to cover some of that gap, because the grants that they have a good history with getting grants to help supplement it. They're always finding new ways to do fundraising, and they're always going, raising revenue that way. But it never seems to cover the gap all the time. So we figured that we would come before the board. We did it in the spring. We presented a PowerPoint, which I have copies of, if anybody wants to see that again from the before Springtown meeting. And we wanted to make sure that we could at least address something so that they're not struggling to get through what we asked them to provide. And again, the only real gap that we see is in those counseling hours. When they refer it, we have to go. And because the cost of counseling, the different things that they do, and you have to know that the actual cost is actually kept down a little bit because of the amount of hours that they get people that volunteers. They'll have student interns come in. They have other things that, because that's part of what their learning process is going through school, and they look on those sources as much as they can. So they do actively try to keep the cost of what these services are down. But the gap is large, and they struggle as an organization. Just like you say, they're like a paycheck to paycheck type of thing, and if something's really big that comes up, they can't cover it. They struggle it, or they try to cut back and do what they have to do, but they still will not turn anybody away. So, we talked with Ed, just before the Board of Selectmen on Monday, and we, even though we did ask for that, we said, well, 75 is better than nothing. At least it addresses a little bit of the gap. They're still trying to do other things. We had Auburn Youth and Family Services annual meeting was today, and they always look at new ways to raise funds. They always look at fundraisers, and they will still actively do that. But the 7,500 goes a little way toward addressing what is a huge gap in what we ask for them to provide, and they don't turn it away. So I do understand, that it may not be a town department, but we are a commission that actually actively contracts out services that we as a town would like for them to provide, and they have never turned away from that obligation, and they never will turn away from that obligation. So as a town, I would like to say that, we do recognize what you do, and everybody knows, and everybody does. We all know what they do. We all know what the need is that they have. And we would like to see that we can address that in a little way. And that was addressed through discussions that we had, back in the spring mostly, but again, to go with that. And we recognize that it isn't what we did ask, and 7,500 does go, and it's a small portion to what will fill a gap that we have for those services that are provided. And that's what I want to do to address. So when you consider it, and I do know there are a lot of other things in personnel that we look at, they do cut personnel. They let people go because they can't cover whatever it is, and they make do with what they have. They make those sacrifices, and they've been making them for 5 or 6 years. Let's try to help them out a little bit. That's all I ask.
I appreciate your time, Norm. Are there any questions or comments from the board over what we've had already?
Does anybody like a copy of it was a PowerPoint presentation that we did in spring. If anybody wants a copy of it, I have them here.
Okay.
If you want to kind of go over them.
That's fine. Can I make a comment? And I'm doing something I try not to do, and that's speak before I actually think about what I'm saying. And Ed, please correct me if I'm wrong on this. The organization, Youth and Family Services, still has the ability to annually make a request under one of these articles for one-time funding.
No, they do not. We as the Auburn Youth Commission, my understanding is that we as the Auburn Youth Commission, we negotiate what a contract will be. And we actually it's been the same for almost as long as I've been on the commission. We started to increase services. Most of the services that we asked to increase were because of priorities that came from the school. They wanted to get counseling at lower levels. They already do that at their own cost. That's not contracted in anywhere, and they do provide those services. But all the negotiations go, once we formulate that contract, we actually do set out what is the cost for the services that we're asking them to provide. And on this PowerPoint, it goes back, I believe, to 5 years to what those actual costs were, to what they were going to do. And they always try to optimize whatever they can do. And we negotiate what we believe on the budget item. We know it's been very fiscally hard since at least 2008, if not before that. And we recognize that we always have to be conservatively, fiscally, and we have to work with that because we have to improve our ratings. We have to make sure we have money for emergencies. There are always departments that need it. But the funding that we always ask for at the level funding has always drastically been underfunded for what we actually contract with them. So we are the ones that negotiate all that. We are the ones that try to work what is a workable budget within the line item, and we put in the request that is not through Auburn Youth and Family Services.
Okay. Ed, can you add to that? I'm just thinking, look, we know we have an issue trying to add to our operating budget, which means trying to get behind funding year after year at the same level, yet we continually see what I call one-time articles coming in here for specific funding. Wayne, on behalf of cemetery beautification over there, et cetera, does AYFS have an ability to request one-time warrant
No,
article funding?
AYFS does not, but the Auburn Youth Commission does.
Okay.
Problem being an outside article, it doesn't permanently build it into the operating budget.
Correct, but how is that different from any sort of fundraiser that you do? You get certain amounts of funds that you raise, and that's not the same every year, but it adds to the
The
piggy bank.
fundraising is not my part of it. That's all.
I get that.
Auburn Youth, I I'll go to the fundraisers, I support them, and I'll give money, but to organize them and work on them and come up with ideas, that is strictly with Auburn Youth and Family Services Board and what they do.
I guess my point being is, there's still a way to be requesting from the town additional funding. It's not secure every year, but it is a fundraising technique that I think they should also look at as we struggle to try to give you some sort of a reasonable and permanent operating budget.
Well, that would come through us, and I would be willing to sit down with Ed and Julie to work out, probably in the spring, some type of one-time warrant thing that would at least address the problem for a year. I mean, without having to make it a yearly appropriation that goes through it. But these are yearly costs that they have.
We understand that.
The cost and the need has only expanded over the last 5 or 6 years. It hasn't shrunk, and, in the foreseeable future, it probably will not.
And we appreciate the work you do, so, no, thanks. We appreciate.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you adding to the
At least
conversation.
hear me out. I can leave these if anybody would like them. Do you know?
Dave, sir.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Chief Coleman, we're moving on to Article 11. Thanks for your patience on this. Article 11, see if town meeting will vote to appropriate $7,500 from general fund revenues to install floor drains on the apparatus floor at Fire Station Number 2 on West Street. I believe you were before us last winter with some needs over there, roof issues, et cetera, and I think kind of highlighted that you needed some drains in the floors too. What was that, the old cafeteria over there that's now your floor?
Yes, so, again, as many of you know, Station 2 is a previous elementary school. The space where the trucks sit is the original concrete cafeteria floor. And, that floor was never really designed to carry the weight, of the trucks that it's carrying. So when you go to the station and you open the bay doors as the trucks come out onto the apparatus, you can see the deterioration of the concrete floor as the trucks roll over the lip. It's all peeled away. The bigger issue is on that space of the floor, there is a single 3-inch drain that sits in the middle of the floor, and that's the only drainage on the entire floor. One of the other situations that becomes problematic, with the current situation is because it was designed as a cafeteria, it has no pitch. So the DPW, Mr. Coyle, was able to come out, and we confirmed really what we already knew. We shot some lines, and the floor is perfectly flat. Whereas if you went to the fire station on Auburn Street and you shot those same lines, there's 2 inches of pitch from the back of the building to the front of the draining, and everything pitches towards the drains. So if you hose the entire floor down at headquarters and you sat patiently enough and watched it, you could actually see the water on the floor move to the drainage. That doesn't happen on West Street. So when the trucks are either washed or they come back to the station during a rain or a snow event and they're parked, all of the water that sheds off the truck when it hits the floor, it stays idle and it doesn't move until we manually push the water. There's only 1 or 2 places to push the water. We either move it towards the 3-inch drain, which necessarily doesn't accept that volume of water, or we have to pop the bay doors to open them slightly. We squeegee the water out onto the front of the apron. That becomes problematic during cold weather events because now it's a never-ending battle of keeping the ice off of the front of the apron. So the $7,500 request that I've made, and before I talk about exactly what the scope of the work, let me just tell you why it's before you this evening. Originally, in conversations with the town manager and the CFO, this was going to be part of sort of a greater CIP plan for the buildings. But the reason that I pulled it out is because I really want to try to get the work done before this winter. Last winter, when we had a lot of snowfall, we had a lot of issues with standing water on the floor, so I want to try to alleviate that, before next winter. So that's why this one piece was pulled out of the CIP, and I'm trying to handle it separately. In consultation with the DPW, we feel that the $7,500 is an adequate number for what I'm going to call a temporary fix. My original request to the town manager and the CFO for this project was for $25,000, and that was to completely remove the existing concrete floor, install drainage in each of the bays, and then re-pour the floor with pitch. The reason that I decided to pull away from that was, again, after conversations with the manager and the CFO, we didn't want to expend that kind of money on the floor until really the greater plan of what West Street is going to be is answered, whether that's on the school side or the fire station side. It's probably one of the most popular questions I receive, from people is what is the status and the future of West Street? And the honest answer is that we don't know. So before we start, throwing good money at projects, those are some questions that I think all of us would like answered first. So we feel that the $7,500 is a short-term fix to that problem. It will entail the DPW working with some fire department staff too. There's 3 bay doors. Essentially, we're going to be trenching, digging the concrete up, cutting the concrete out, and creating 3 spaces in front of the bay doors where we'll sink drains into. We're going to need a plumber to tie the drainage into the existing drains, which isn't a problem. It's right there in the front of the station. So we've been able to minimize, at least the labor costs of this by having DPW and fire department staff conduct the work. So that's why it's pulled out, and that's why it's here before you this evening.
Okay, Jim first and then Kim.
Chief, just a question. Where does this drain water go?
It is tied, I defer to Jeff Mitchell, but it's tied into it. There's an oil water separator in the front of the
Okay,
building.
so it
There's
is,
an oil water separator.
Okay.
Connects into the sanitary sewer.
I'm glad someone
Thank
asked
you.
that. Kim? Good question.
2 questions. Eddie, what's the administration's recommendation on this article, and what's the source of funding?
From general fund revenue, which is that adjustment in local receipts we talked about,
So how much were you adjusting local receipts?
like $6,500.
No,
Plus-
well, you got 7,500 here.
Right, we had a $500 reduction in Article 2,
Yeah, but you were 14,000.
and 14, so roughly $20,000.
And is
Our
the-
recommendation, we talked about this, as the chief indicated, the original request then came from 25. We thought about, we said, would that be in the town's best interest without knowing the long-term plan for a central admin as well as the impact it may have on West Street Fire Station? As a result of that, I think this would be the most prudent way to go, given the unknowns.
Any other questions? I mean, just from a public safety perspective, I'm sure you've got some icing and some slippery floors that you're dealing with anyways.
Yeah, like I said, it becomes more difficult when we get to freezing temperatures.
Yeah.
The only place, really to get the water off, it's a catch-22. You don't want the water standing on the floor for slips and falls, but then you push it outside the building, and then you got issues with trucks trying to come in or people walking out front. So, we feel at least this way, it's a place for the water to go, to
Right.
keep it off the front apron and keep it off the floor.
And Bill would charge you 30% more for salt in the winter this year, so, that might be a net zero from last year. Kim,
Motion to recommend
Okay.
approval.
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, so voted. Chief, thanks, good to see you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
That was Article 11. Let's see. DPW Director Bill Coyle's here. Bill, obviously several articles. I'm actually going to hold Article 13, which is the stabilization fund article, till last, so we'll skip around a little bit anyways. Bill, I'll try to go in the order of your articles.
Okay, great, thank you.
Article 12, see if the town will vote to amend CIP Article 3 from May 1st, 2012 annual town meeting. Delete 40,000 for new bath fixtures, and 20,000 for bathroom renovations, and 20,000 for handicap access improvements. So basically, well, why don't you tell us what we're trying to do here?
Okay, through the chair, This article is, pertains to a project that we're beginning at the senior center. The facilities department has just completed their work at the police station. All the windows have been installed and that work is now done. They're now moving on up to the senior center with some significant renovations to the entrance relative to handicap improvements. I believe the initial articles that were, or CIP and articles that were passed in years past were about $38,000 to accommodate those improvements. Looking at the needs, our feeling is the $38,000 is probably not going to be enough. We need a total of 5 handicap accessible doors. There's 2 double doors in the front main entrance. There is another single handicap door when you first get into the lobby area to go right into their function room. And then there are 2 additional doors in the back entrance that comes from the Auburn Housing Authority as well. So there's 5 major doors. They'll all be handicap accessible. There are improvements to the foyer area that need to be made. There's an icing problem on the existing roof that's existed for several years that we're going to be addressing. And then there's interior work as well to also make accommodations for handicap wheelchairs for a minimum 5-foot turning radius. So there's interior walls that need to be moved, and then additional carpeting installation that'll need to be done as well. Closets that need to be moved, some electrical work. So our estimation is that an additional $20,000 on top of the existing $38,000 should be sufficient to cover this work. We've also looked at the renovations that need to be done in the bathrooms, and we feel as though the $40,000 was more than enough money. We feel as though the $20,000 should be more than sufficient to do what needs to be done to the repairs to the restrooms. And so we believe that this isn't new money. It's more reallocation of existing
Repurpose,
funds.
yeah.
Repurpose. Thank you.
Okay. And all that's going to be done by your facilities?
Facilities will do all of the carpentry work. The plumbing work will be done, in the bathrooms will be done. We'll do all the tile work, but the actual fixtures will be changed out by a licensed plumber. But
Okay.
the rest of the work will be facilities.
Okay. Any questions on this? Great idea.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you. We're going to skip Article 13. Articles 14, 15, 16, and 17. To me, they're all related or related explanations to them. So if you want to explain that first, and then I'll drill through these.
Sure. Essentially, all 4 of these articles, they are all related. We had 3 of our 6-wheel dump trucks, the larger trucks, not pass inspection this year. One was a 1988 GMC, one was a 1991, the other was 1994. So, 26 years old, 23, and 20 years. All 3 of them had significant rot on the frames to a point where we can no longer keep them on the road safely. So they have been declared surplus property, but we now need to find a way to now fill our needs to get us through the winter. We do have one 6-wheel dump truck on order currently. That truck probably won't come until towards the end of the winter to early spring. So what we're looking to do is we're going to retrofit the backhoe with a plow. So one of our truck drivers with his Class 2A, he'll be plowing with the backhoe, which we weren't doing in the past. We use a front-end loader we do plow with, but we're going to plow with the backhoe. We're going to also retrofit one of the new trucks, the Ford F-550 that we purchased with a wing. That's essentially just a large pickup truck. By providing a wing, it actually would be similar to having 2 trucks running tandem. So we'd be able to basically reduce one of the plows that would be needed by having one truck with a wing attached. And it's something that we're going to evaluate. There are some towns that use quite a few of these pickup trucks with wings, and we're going to see how well it works and, evaluate whether or not it's something we want to do more in the future and minimize the number of plows and have a truck with a wing. In addition to that, one of the other plows will go from a 8-foot plow to a 10-foot plow. This is a route where we don't have a large truck, so we're trying to increase the size of the plow just to be able to keep up with the snow removal process more so. And I believe, Jeff, was there any others? Did that cover them all? Yeah, that covered it.
Okay. Can you also comment, I know within these 3 or 4 articles, if I'm interpreting right, we've got some leftover balances on some needs that were addressed, and I want to make sure we're clear on that. Needs were addressed. There are leftover balances that were taken care of with this. It's not like, for instance, in Article 14, we did work on the highway roof. It's not like that was ignored, where we just have additional funds. Is that correct?
The roof has been completed. That was completed last year, and there is, I believe it was $20,000 originally borrowed, and there's $5,000 remaining in that account. The Cirrus units, Article 15 speaks of, those units were purchased, and there's $1,900 remaining after the purchase. In Article 16, this was relative to the 6-wheel dump truck. There was a remaining balance of $3,550. And then Article 17, I believe this article was relative to a purchase of a front-end loader that the price came in significantly less than anticipated. So there's $40,000 remaining in that account.
Okay. Good. I'll open it for questions. Kim?
Can we take all 4 of these together?
I think we need to vote on them individually, and I'll just read as fast as I can. I have a feeling that we're probably all on the same page. We'll try to keep things moving, but I think we need to take a vote on each of them on this, and if I'm wrong, then you let me know later, okay? All right, any other questions on this? All right, this is all pretty much repurposing prior CIP stuff for newly identified needs. All right, I'll just start reading ahead on this. Article 14, this is to repurpose a May 2011 annual town meeting CIP of $5,000 that was previously for highway roof, which was done, and install a 10-inch or 10-foot power angle plow on the highway backhoe.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Article 15, this is to amend Article 19 of the October 2013 special town meeting. This is to repurpose $1,900 from a Cirrus closed spreader control system and add, install 10-foot power angle plow on highway backhoe.
Recommend approval?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, so voted. Article 16, this is to amend Article 21 of the October 2012 special town meeting, repurposing $3,550 that went to a 6-wheel dump truck, and that's to install another 10-foot power angle plow blade.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. In Article 17, this is from the May 1st, 2012 town meeting, repurposing actually $40,000 that was, and we did get that leader lease purchase,
Yes.
well, loader lease purchase, excuse me, and retrofit sewer pickup, yeah, with an expandable plow, retrofit highway F550 with front-end wing plow setup.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so voted. Thank you.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out that Jeff Mitchell spent a lot of time working on all 4 of these items to make this work and to come up with a plan for us for this winter. So
Excellent.
I did want to mention that. And the Fleet Division will be doing a lot of work once this money does become available to get us up and running for the winter. So.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Jeff Mitchell's here with us to receive applause and congratulations. Okay. Article 18, if you want to give us a brief on that, Bill?
Article 18, this is to repurpose $14,000. Originally, we were looking to purchase a slope riding mower. Since this article, a need has arisen to replace the walk-behind mower within the Parks Division that was not anticipated at the time. This is more of a need to us, and rather than looking for additional funds, we felt that we could utilize it's a brush hog that we're using now to mow our landfill with. And by utilizing that, we feel as though we would rather use the funds to replace the walk-behind mower, which was $5,600, and there's also a need as well for the fencing around Rocket Land. We've had several concerns brought to our attention recently regarding children playing in Rocket Land, and where there's no fencing to the parking lot, safety issues have been brought to our attention, so it's more of a need to us to have this work done.
And town administration's on board with that additional fencing and the cost related to it? Okay. Any questions on this? I'll read it very quickly. It's Article 18. This is to amend CIP Article 3 of the May 2013 Annual Town Meeting, deleting $14,000 for slope riding mower, and add $5,600 for a walk-behind mower, replacing a 1999 mower, and $8,400 to be used for fencing around the playground at Rocket Land.
Recommend approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so voted. Okay. And Article 19 is to appropriate $998.50 for cemetery columbarium, did I pronounce that right? Foundation, and that is from the Expendable Trust. Pretty straightforward on that.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
What's a columbarium?
This is essentially for the remains for ashes to be stored in. And Wayne, how many units will there be?
It's 48 inch.
You can, Wayne's done quite a bit of work. There was a CIP article for, I believe,
Right.
20,000 for the columbarium.
Yep.
We've gotten prices, and I think we're just under the 20,000, so we don't have funding to do the concrete foundation, which we're gonna do in-house. And Wayne can probably give you a better indication of the dimensions of the columbarium and the capacity.
Well, it's 24-inch columbarium on each side, so it's 48. The total price that we got was $19,200, and we have the purchase order out for it, so it's going to take 120 days, and this way, if we can get the foundation in and be ready for it.
Reserve a spot.
We'll leave that alone. We'll leave that alone, you know. Where's this gonna be located on the grounds?
We're looking outside the front office, so that it'll be, it's like a small mausoleum, and it'll be an area where everybody can keep an eye on it, and it'll be an asset to the property.
Oh, absolutely. Is that area expandable?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I can't picture where that is, so.
And if I can add, if it's something that is successful in terms of the needs of the cemetery, it would be something that we would expand on in the future as well.
Absolutely, okay. Kim, all set on that? Okay, do we have a motion on this?
Motion.
In a second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Article 20, and thanks, Wayne. I guess we're not done with Wayne. See, you skipped the Maytown meeting, so we got all of this now. I'll tell you what. Okay, this is a vote to appropriate $1,400 from the expendable trust account to purchase a cemetery backhoe bucket. Any questions or recommendation on this?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Do you have an approximate balance on what's in the trust at this point in time? You don't,
I
okay.
may have that. I can,
Okay,
just give me a few
I'll
minutes.
continue on if you can grab that. Let's see. Bill, I see we've got, what, 2 more articles, and I think are they both streets?
Correct.
Which we normally to defer to petitioner on this, and I believe you've spoken at length on these anyways, that they're acceptable anyways, and et cetera, so. I'll take a motion on Article 22, which is Westview Street. Have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so voted. Article 23 is an extension, I think, on Santam Street. The motion?
We would defer to petition.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So voted, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, in answer to your question, At the annual town meeting, the balance in the non-expendable perpetual care trust was $883,000. The expendable portion available for appropriation, an additional $295,000.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Good to see you. Wayne, good to see you, too. Jeff, good to see you. I think we have 2 articles left. Article 13, let's skip to Article 21, and then we'll take Article 13. Article 21, see if town meeting will vote to grant the town manager authority to research, develop, and participate in a contract or contracts to aggregate the electricity load of the residents and businesses in the town and for other related electrical services independently or in joint action with other municipalities, retaining the right of individual residences and businesses to opt out of the aggregation. Comments on this?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Good. And the last one, this would be the addition to the stabilization fund. Article 13, see if town meeting will vote to appropriate the sum of $200,000 from overlay surplus to the stabilization fund. Any
Motion to
comments?
recommend.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Good. Yeah. So I'll go back and, so that's all for the town meeting warrant articles. We've got 2 on hold? Article 2?
Article 2 and Article 10.
Okay, so we'll take care of that night, I guess. All right, good work on that. Okay, so what we have left, Ed, I believe is these are the transfers for the bylaw employees.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
So all of these transfers are for the same reason. A total amount Sharon gave me of approximately $19,808. And this is all coming from the reserve account, and we had an adequate balance for that.
The balance we haven't transferred anything out yet. We have $40,000 available.
And that's the salary and wage reserve?
Okay. Any questions on that? Because I think once we get going on this, if you have any questions after, that's fine. We'll discuss these. Wow, okay. Well, let's have some fun with this. First one, amount requested, $2,247, and this is under town accountants.
Recommend approval?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so voted. Our next one, under town accountant, this is under clerical, amount requested, $1,667.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so voted. Next one, within the assessor's office salary account, amount requested, $1,225.
Recommend approval?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so voted, thank you. Under the assistant assessor data collector, assessor's office, amount requested, $948.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so voted. Salary account under the treasurer, amount requested, $915.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Under clerical, under the treasurer collector, amount requested, $795.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, so voted. Thank you. Clerical under the finance department, amount requested, $866.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, so voted. Thank you. Salary account under town clerk, amount requested, $1,277.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, so voted. Clerical under town clerk, amount requested, $787.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, so voted. Salary account under the DPW, amount requested, $1,915.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, so voted. Engineer aid under DPW, amount requested $1,088.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Highway surveyor salary account under DPW, amount requested $1,224.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Superintendent salary under DPW,
Motion,
amount requested $1,041.
motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Salaries, superintendent under DPW, amount requested $1,493.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Recreation director under DPW, amount requested $780.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Sanitarian salary under Board of Health, amount requested $1,267.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Salary under veterans, amount requested $273.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you, everybody. So that was just under half of the salary and wage reserve, correct, Ed? Okay. All right. So that's transfers. Any comments on the minutes from 3:13:13 and 3:20:13? Any corrections? No. That's fine. All right. Excellent. That brings us down to our annual reorganization. I don't know, Sharon, you're supposed to take over the meeting at this point, or?
A call for nominations for chairman of the finance committee.
Kevin?
Kevin Hussey.
Second.
Did you second it?
Yeah.
Are there any further nominations?
Close nominations.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor to close nominations?
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor of Mr. Hussey for chairman?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain. Abstain. All right. What's that?
No, I don't get a vote.
No, you don't. You still here? Let's see, and we would still need to nominate a vice chair, correct? All
For Ann Kavanaugh.
Second?
in favor? Aye. Opposed, so voted. Sharon, what do we do now? Close nominations?
Motion
That
to
it?
close nominations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and the vote for Ian as vice chair?
Aye.
Aye. I guess that's sort of how we do it. Never get good at that, so thanks, everybody. Appreciate continued support. That's our agenda for tonight. Ed, we do not need to meet before town meeting, correct? Which
I don't
is
believe so.
Tuesday, the 21st?
First.
Okay. 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock town meeting.
All right, so we've got two open items. I'll leave it to the board on whether you think we only need a half an hour, or do we need more time than that on these? 6:30, fine? Okay. With that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. So voted. Thanks, everybody.